Hello everyone, this is Mindful Contract Administrator. Are you a FIDIC practitioner and are you interested in becoming a practitioner of another standard form of a contract? So, this series of videos has been designed in order to attain that objective. I have been a FIDIC practitioner for nearly 2 decades, and I have been an NEC, that is New Engineering Contract practitioner, for more than an year now. Now, let us understand whether the knowledge that you have gained through being a FIDIC practitioner is really, whether it is really important in order to comprehend the NEC form of a contract. My objective is to go through the same process with you. When I learned FIDIC, I had got a lot of knowledge and experience. Of course, I have gained a lot of lessons learned practices based on FIDIC. Now, becoming an NEC practitioner, having a strong background of FIDIC is very useful because there are a lot of similarities between these two standard forms of contract. But I'm not saying that everything that you learned in FIDIC may be useful in order for you to practice NEC. May not be useful in order to practice NEC as well, because there may be certain differences. But the knowledge that you have gathered in FIDIC is not in vain, and you can easily adapt to that particular situation when it comes to NEC standard form of a contract. So that's the story. So let us start with something very simple and very useful in understanding the NEC terminology with respect to FIDIC. I hope you all have used the word works, which starts with a capital W, when you used FIDIC standard form of a contract. As you all know, FIDIC standard form of a contract has got the defined terms with a capital letter. NEC uses somewhat similar approach, but NEC has got two different classes. One is known as defined terms, which starts with capital letters, and one is known as identified terms, which is written in italics so that you can easily identify those two. But in essence, both of them are cast in concrete. So that means you cannot change the definition of a defined term or a term which is known as something which is an identified term. So let us go back to the FIDIC defined term works. As you all know, the FIDIC defined term works has got two different elements. One is known as permanent works and the other one is known as the temporary works, right? So the permanent works that you normally understand in the FIDIC form of a contract is something that you leave behind once you deliver the project. For instance, that you're talking about something like a building, a bridge, or a structure like a road or pier or a substation, something like that. But when it comes to the temporary works, which is also another defined term in FIDIC, it says temporary works are the works which are required to deliver the works which are not of a permanent nature. It is deemed as which are not of a permanent nature. Now, let us take into account an example like a form work. Sometimes the form work that you are using in delivering a project will be taken out from the site. But there are certain other form work which is known as sacrificial form work or permanent form work. We use the both terminology. So sacrificial form work are the form work that you leave behind when you go out from the site. So it is not right to say that the temporary works are not of a permanent nature, because the permanent works are the works of a permanent nature as per FIDIC terminology. So let us take for instance, about 20 years back, when I was in Sri Lanka, my first project was closer to the famous Lotus Tower. It was a 10-story building called the Postal Complex. So I was an engineer in that particular site when the cast in situ piling, the board and cast in situ piling was done. So in that particular scenario, we used what is known as a steel casing in the top part of the pile. So when we use that particular steel casing, once the pile is cast, you won't take that particular steel casing. It is impossible for you to do that one. So it is a sacrificial formwork, which is a temporary work, which is known as the defined term temporary works, but it is not something which is temporary. Okay, it is permanent. So it may not be it is there is a thin line between the permanent works and the temporary works, the way you define it, the way you comprehend it under FIDIC scenario. But when you talk about something like a road, an access road, sometimes you may have seen when you're doing a particular permanent road, you may need to have small diversion in order to divert the traffic during an expansion of a particular road or something like that. So that particular road is sometimes demolished in order to facilitate another structure to be placed at that place, or sometimes you may leave it as it is, isn't it, for a car park or for some yard or something like that. So that access road is also a temporary work, but it remains as permanent once you leave the site as the contractor. So this is the scenario. Now when it comes to the NEC scenario, NEC has got a defined term called to provide the works, as opposed to the works which starts from capital W in FIDIC. But the interesting part is, okay, I use the term visa. It is not the visa which starts with V, because there are four elements which is in that particular definition in NEC form of a contract. Those are visa. What is visa? Visa means W is works, I is incidental work, okay, S is services, and A is actions. Okay, works, incidental work, actions and services, or services and actions, so something like that. So this particular visa is the element, is the constituent elements of the defined term to provide the works in NEC scenario. So in that case, the works are actually the works that you define in FIDIC, and apart from that, the incidental work, if you take the English literal meaning of incidental work, that is something ancillary which is required to do the main work. So it is something very similar to the scenario that you find in FIDIC as temporary works. Okay, and then it comes to something like services. Now in this part of the world, or of course in other parts of the world as well, we do certain services in relation to environmental activities. We take services of people to do ecological activities as well, something like that. And those activities which is required to deliver the project are known as services being provided by the contractor. So that is also part of the to provide the works definition within NEC type of a contract. And then when you're talking about actions, there are certain actions that the contractor has to perform in order to deliver the project, in order to complete the tasks which are being vested upon him in accordance with the contract. So what are those actions? Like the photographic evidence that you are giving along with your monthly report. So that is also very important in identifying that. So in summary, FIDIC has got a defined term called works, that is permanent works and the temporary works, and NEC has got four elements in the defined term called to provide the works, which can be abbreviated as VISA, WISA. What is that? Works, incidental work, services, and actions. So those are the things which encompasses the defined term to provide the works in NEC scenario. So that is the compare and contrast exercise which I have done in relation to the defined term works and to provide the works in NEC scenario. So that's it for today, and we will come back with another very interesting scenario, a very interesting session in NEC form of a contract, and becoming an NEC practitioner through FIDIC scenario by understanding the FIDIC concepts, by the knowledge that you have gathered through FIDIC can be easily utilized for NEC scenario. Have a good day, and we will definitely have another session with understanding NEC through FIDIC terminology, which will be useful in order for you to adapt into an NEC situation. Thank you.